What's the deal, my people? You know it is Don Tony Teflon. I'm back at you with another one, and this is Power Book 3, Raising Kanan, recap and review. I got a lot to say about this episode, so let's get this popping. What up to all my thugs, nerds, freaks, and geeks? You're now rocking with the best of Don Tony Teflon. And if you can, please subscribe and click that bell so you can be notified every time I drop a new video. Also, thumbs up this video. 500 likes is the goal so we can trigger the YouTube algorithm. Help your boy, help black YouTube creators get exposure on YouTube. Alright, let's break this straight down. Now, first and foremost, let me tell you like this. This show is near and dear to my heart because this is my neighborhood. This is where I grew up. This is where my family grew up. So I know every place they're going in here. This is my era. I know the clothes. I know when they walking on Jamaica Avenue, when they walking past the Coliseum. I've been there so many times, walked through those halls, did all that. When they show the school shots, I went to those schools. So I'm going to be able to tell you if it's really accurate to the way it truly was growing up out there. I got mad heads up in Southside Jamaica, Queens. They're my peoples out there and everything else. Baisley Projects, 40 Projects, and all that situation. So I'll be able to tell you if it's really the real deal, the way that they're portraying this, if this is the way it really was out there in Queens growing up. So for this episode, I'm going to try to break things down top 5 style, and we'll see where it goes. So number 5 would be Kanan's first fight. You know, I've been through a situation like this verbatim, exactly the way it happened, where you get beat up at the park. And everyone in New York City, they hang by the handball courts up in those parks right there, and that's where everything goes down. And yes, when you're that young, it truly is that violent. Like, you really get beat up that bad, and that's the way it goes. And if you do run home, is a problem. Now, we see him run home, and his mom's brought him right back to the park, gave him a sock, most likely looked like it had a lockup in there, and was like, listen, you're gonna have to handle your business. That exact same situation happened to me but it happened with me and my older brother. That I got beat up by some kids. I ran home crying, and my older brother told me, who was a very gangster, him heads know him to this day, was like, listen, you got 2 choices. You're either gonna get beat up or you're gonna beat somebody up. You're either gonna get beat up by me or you're gonna get beat up by him again. So just your decision, what you got to do, but the bottom line is you're going right back down there because I can't have my brother like that. So that 100% is very realistic. I'm sure a lot of people been through situations like that, but I'm telling you, in Queens, that happens all the time. So that was a great scene. I love that right off the back, and I would say that this TV show does look very cinematic. It does look like you're watching a movie and not just a TV show, and I truly appreciate that. Number 4, Jukebox storyline going forth. I like the portrayal of Jukebox by this actress, and I think that it's really the way it is in the city or in any black family. You always have someone who has this type of talent. Like, I had a cousin named Esther who was a great fashion designer. And you see this talent peek through even in the bad conditions that we had to grow up in. Her dealing with the talent that she has, plus having to deal with the fact that she's a lesbian, is a situation that many young black women have had to deal with. And going on back then, now it's a little bit more of a free era where you can be who you want to be, but at that particular time in the late 80s, early 90s, there was no way you could come out and tell somebody that this was the case. There's no way you can go to a family member or anyone around your hood and tell them, if you're a woman, this is how you felt. So I love the way they're playing with the storyline, and the fact that her girlfriend is from a prep school. Now, in New York City, they always have these prep schools with these girls, the Catholic schools, and these rich white girls all go to them. We used to all go out there and stalk them chicks when they got out of school back in the day. So the fact that she rolled up there in gear that I would wear, nice polo down that I used to wear, you know what I mean, back in the day, and goes and picks up this chick from school, that's the same thing we would do, you know what I mean, to them chicks and everything else. And the same way that those other girls reacted to seeing a black person, because even though you may think that New York City is so diverse, it still is very much segregated. And there are definitely lines drawn when it comes to financial wealth and situations. And you don't see black people that much in these Catholic schools. So they would react that way to a black woman. I think going forward with her storyline and everything else, it's going to be great representation for the LGBTQ community that they have her in there, and I like the way they're playing it right now. So I can't wait to see more from that situation. Number 3, Kanan's school situation. Now we see in this that his mother is trying to get him to go to a better school so she can live a better life, so he does not have to live the life she has. She wants him to take this test so he gets accepted and goes off to school. Now, if you're not familiar with the New York City school system, it goes like this. When you're in high school or about to go to high schools are kind of like colleges. You can apply to go to a different high school, and then you won't go to your zone school that's around your way. You will then have to get a bus pass and a train pass if necessary and go out to these schools, because a lot of these schools are specialized. If you're into art and design, you would go to art and design in Manhattan, and if you're from Queens, you travel all the way out to Manhattan to go to school. So this is the basic situation that they're setting up here, and it's a very realistic situation because anyone who went to New York City schools had to deal with this. Now, his crew is like everybody else's crew. You always had somebody in there who was a rapper. You always had somebody up in there who was making the beats on the tables. You know, this is the way it was, and you always have the dime piece shorty that's with the smoothest guy who's got the best clothes and gear he shouldn't have at that age. You know what I mean? And gold that they shouldn't have. And you always have that chick. And I really like the way that they depicted all these people and everything else. That is, without a shadow of a doubt, the way it goes down in New York City. Now, is this the way it goes? I can't speak for other places. And since this is taking place in Queens, in the neighborhood I grew up, I'm just telling you exactly if it's accurate to what I experienced growing up. And that is 100% the way it is. And also the way that you have a reputation. Kanan got that reputation from being a child and beating them kids up with that sock and the lock in the sock. It travels with you. That stays with you for your whole life. Even though you did that as a child, people who remember that won't test you again because they remember that when you were 10 years old. It's like they have the other boy, the Puerto Rican cat that's running with him, and they call him famous because he had one shot because he read a poem on the radio station. We had a cat like that in our school, you know what I mean, who did some little thing like that, got on a radio station and acted like he was famous after all that. And that stuff sticks with you. It stays with you, and that's how it is in New York City. So I thought that his crew and his school situation, that the way they dealt with it is 100% on point, and I like the way that they pulled that off. Number 2, Kanan's mom. Now, I will say this. When I dealt with people in the New York City area, and especially in Southside Jamaica, Queens, you really didn't see women running the show in the drug trade, all right? She's playing a phenomenal job, right? She's doing a great job. The way she acts as a mother is exactly the way black women act as mothers back then. That's the way my mom's acted. What I done, 100%. And that's just the way. So that depiction is 100% on. As for her leading all these dudes and drugs and stuff like that, it really didn't go down like that. Most of the big time drug dealers and everything out there were men. Were there women that gave them advice that they were with and everything else? Maybe, kind of, but I understand that this is a show and they wanted to put the limelight and show that his mother is running the show and this is where he comes from. So I understand the way it went down. Truly loved the part where she went to the club to make the deal, and then the uppity white chick, the publicist, tried to get underneath her nerves and acted like, yo, I'm not no scared little white girl. We're not taking your coke because your coke is stepped on. So if you understand what stepped on means, that means it's been cut many times. It's not pure. So that's why she didn't want it, because it was too much cut in there. But they had already made the deal, so there's no backing out. When you make a deal with someone like that, unless you're ready to go to war with someone, you're not going to back out the deal. So I think it was hot the way they showed this chick. She's doing her thing with this black dude, doing her thing, and all of a sudden she got that smell and she's looking for a dog, and they put her dog right up in the microwave. And I like the way they did that. I like that the whole depiction. I like the way they're showing her that, listen, she's a boss, and as a boss, you don't get your hands dirty. You do not do the deed yourself. That's the way it is supposed to be. You're not supposed to be the one. You have soldiers out there to do that. The fact that they showed her not get her hands dirty, the fact that they showed her negotiating with Unique, giving him some corners so that she doesn't have to deal with his situation and you come back to deal with that. I love the way they showed that. The diner scene with the family, that is very realistic. In New York City, you didn't have all these, at that time, expensive restaurants and everything else. I'm telling you, the only expensive restaurant I can remember being out there on Queens Boulevard was Beefsteak Charlie's and Pizzeria Uno's. You had bodegas and you had diners. And that's where you would go as a family. You would go to a diner. And you would sit in the diner and you have family dinner. I did that so many times with my family, and that was like the restaurant in the city. When growing up in Queens, you would go there and you would do that. Now, they also showed Jamaica Avenue and the Coliseum Strip. Coliseum, I've been in there so many times. Love the Coliseum. Love the fact that they showed the Coliseum. You have to. There's no way to do a show about Jamaica, Queens and not show the Coliseum. And you got to show Sutton Boulevard where all the pawn shops are at. That's definitely got to be shown. These are the things that make it. They should have went straight to the Jamaica, the patty shop, the Jamaica flavor shop. They should have shown that. I'm sure they'll show that in the upcoming episode. Glad that they did that. But back to the mother and the way she's holding it down. I think they're doing a phenomenal job showing her how she's a boss, how a boss is supposed to act, and where she's going. And we'll get to the rest of her in this last one. Number 1, Kanan catches his first body. Now, I thought that this was an accurate depiction of the way it goes down in these streets. I'm going to tell you that right off the bat. Because this is how it goes. When you have your boys, they come out there and they gas you up and they start talking about stuff. That is exactly the way it goes down in these streets out there in Queens. You always have your boys instigating stuff, making you go out there and do stuff. And that's exactly what happened to him. His boys all hype the stuff up. Oh, we can't have these people sitting on your mother's corner. We cannot have that at all. We gotta have you gotta go out here and you gotta do something, to the point where he felt like he was obligated to go out there and do something. Now, this is also a decision that we find out later that people didn't agree with his mother to give away these corners. But when you're not the boss, you don't call the shots, you don't make the final decisions. She is, and that's why she agreed to do it, because she just doesn't have the manpower right now to start a war. And that's the last thing you want, because you don't want the cops coming around. All you want to do is make money when you're doing that. And the money is being made when the cops don't come around. Once the cops come, the money gets shut down. And that's what you're trying to avoid in this situation. So, that whole situation, the way it went down, they loaded up their tools, they went out there, they went around the corner, they seen dudes standing out there, they both busted off at this dude, other guys stayed back, and that's usually the way it goes. You'll have a bunch of people who say they down to do something, but really it's a couple of y'all that really actually do the job. Other people stand in the background, and that's what happened. They both busted off, and when they hit the dude, they was like, well, who hit him? You hit him? I hit him? Like, you don't know, because you just busting and that's it. The way that the guy was laying out there, and the way that he went over to this dude, and the guy reached up to him and grabbed him. And because it's one thing to go out there and say you're going to do something, it's another thing to see somebody laying there and about to die. When I was young and I was in Jib Lanes, this dude got shot up. And I remember looking down at him. He was the first person I ever seen that close up with bullet wounds in him. And he was reaching up at me and he was telling me, he was like, don't let me die, don't let me die. And I remember I really felt like reaching down and touching him, and I was gonna do it. And my man grabbed my hand and said, yo, don't touch that cat, he could have AIDS. Now that was the era back then. You didn't really have, a lot of, awareness about exactly how you catch AIDS and things like that, but that's what it was. And I had that same type of reaction that they showed this character have, just the shock of seeing somebody die in your face. It's really emotional, and it truly does stay with you. And we see the repercussions, how this all leads out, because him allowing his friends to gas him up contradicts what his mother previously did and squash the beef, and brings up more beef because of it, which eventually makes his mom say she gonna have to send him off to his grandmother. Now, everybody who grew up in the hood, eventually, if your mom can't handle it, you get sent to the grandparents' house. like that's just what it is. Like, they just take you and they drop you off and send you off to your grandparents' house. So all that stuff is very accurate. Going after getting the shirt, having to burn the shirt and all that, 100% accurate depiction of what it's like when people do catch bodies for the first time. And for every action, there's a reaction. I also like the way that they depict, real quick before we go back into that, the gods, being a god and what it's like being a god. And she says straight up, you know what I mean? Do you know today's mathematics? That's something you had to do when you were a god. You had to know the mathematics. I myself was almost a god, but I didn't, because I always felt when I was young it was just an excuse to beat people up that were younger than you. Because what happened, if you didn't know your mathematics, the people who were god body above you, they would beat you up for not knowing it. And I never liked that. But after that, for the whole burning the shirt and everything, after that it leads to the drive-by shooting outside. You hear him call the cat's name, and then all of a sudden they start wetting them up. And that's basically what it is when you do a drive-by shooting. People just shooting. All you really got to do is get down, and you don't usually get hit if you get down, because people are just spraying, and the driving by is not truly an accurate shot that they're going to be able to let off at that time. That's why most of the time when you hear about drive-by shootings, it's always someone random, someone they didn't mean to hit, someone sleeping in the house, some innocent victim who gets shot, because it's just an inaccurate way to try to do something. It's really just a scare tactic more than anything. After that, we see, because he catches this body, goes back to him catching this body. His mother loses all the blocks to this cat, and he tells her straight up, like, listen, I ain't gonna touch his son. My people ain't gonna touch his son, but the man he shot has people, and I can't control those people. It always goes back to you allowing your boys to gas you up and put you in a bad situation. That's exactly what he did, and if he would just held his ground and just let that go, you know what I mean, none of this stuff would have happened. After this, his mom comes and takes him outside, and she brings him to a spot, a vacant place, you know what I mean, where there's mad places like that in the city. She brings out there and she talks to him, she shows him the stars, because earlier you seen that she was all about the constellations. That's what she liked to do. So she shows him that, and she basically tells him after this, like, listen, you wanted to be in this game, now you in this game. You just caught a body. A body is for life. It's not a crime that you can do and 7 years it drops off. That's forever. If that ever gets brought up anytime for the rest of your life, you can go to jail for the rest of your life for doing that. And now he truly has to deal with that situation and come to grips with that reality. So then she's like, listen, if you're going to be in this game, let me show you how to shoot. She puts him out there. He tries to be all gangster, like, I'm going to do this one-handed. And she's like, nah, you got to hold this with two hands. This ain't no TV show. All right, it's not a video game. This is what it truly is. And if you're going to be in it, you're going to have to be in it 100%. This is how you shoot. And because you caught that body, there's always going to be somebody trying to take you down. There's a bullet coming for you eventually. And for the rest of your life, you're going to have to worry about that bullet. So you got the police you got to worry about, because you did it around your boys. You got all these witnesses who know you did it. If they ever get upset with you, they could always drop a dime on you. The hood knows you did it. The hood can drop a dime on you. That's the way it is in Queens. That's the way it is. It's not like you did some sly shit. You did that shit in broad day like an idiot. That's the way episode 1 ends, basically. I love this show so far. Again, it's my neighborhood. I'm from Queens. So am I a little biased towards it? Probably. You know what I mean? But so far, so good with this episode. In the comment section, you let me know what you think about this episode. And I'll be back to do another recap. But if y'all want to do live streams and talk about this, you know I'm about that live. So make sure you thumbs up this video and subscribe to this channel. Spread this across the realm. And until next time, you know who it is. Peace and stay sexy.